All right. Hello, and welcome back to another jam-packed episode of the Hammercast. I'm your host, Alex, the Hebrew Hammer Salkin. And once again, joining me for, I believe, the fourth time is none other than Clif Harski. He is the he is a member of the PPSC, the pain. Hang on a second. I want to make sure I'm saying this correct. I'm going to let you say it so that I don't mix up the verbiage.
It's a long one. Pain-free performance specialist certification.
That's right. I was getting thrown off because I was like, wait a minute, there's no F in PPSC. And so I was like,
Yep.
I better not send people to the wrong website. And you are also I think it's fair to say, the head trainer for the functional kettlebell training
There.
certification course. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, sir.
The head honcho. You got to come up with, like, I'm sure there's also like a funny title you could give yourself. Like all those startup people do. They're like, oh, I'm the
It was
head
yeah,
whatever,
it was CMB, Chief Master Blaster.
chief master blaster.
Yeah.
I like it. He's doing lots of blasting, particularly of the glutes with all the different swing variations. So it's a perfectly fair title. And
I like it.
Cliff and I are going to be talking about, why doesn't your kettlebell guru know these facts? Or, actually, really, why don't they tell you these facts? Because a lot of them do know, and they elect not to tell you.
They
And
do.
so we're going to talk about that. And because we're going to be talking about training in unconventional ways, but ways that get you strong AF, as the youth like to say. I would be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, my 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. Very, very avant garde, to use a French term. I should have said, forgive my French. That would have been perfect but I didn't. Anyway,
Pardon my French.
pardon my French. And it's all about training your gait pattern, which is, I think, one of the, probably not one of, definitely the least seriously trained movement patterns in the strength world, anyway. People who are runners or sprinters, they're training it seriously, but a lot of people don't do a lot with it. And so, in 30 seconds, you can learn the movements in the 9-minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge, hit the ground running, and you can toss it into your current workouts. It's designed to give you more strength and energy than to take it away from you. And it's free. So I better not hear any complaints about it. Go to 9minutechallenge.com and get your own free copy. That is the number 9minutechallenge.com. So now, Cliff, welcome back to the old Hammercast.
Good to be back. It's been 2 years because we did it 2 months ish after you took the course in December of 23 in Nashville.
Oh, yes. That's
Yeah.
right. It was a long time ago.
Time's
Yeah.
flying, man.
Yeah, I know. But it was a very, very good course. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. And I think, in particular, one of the things that's really great about your approach is you're doing the stuff with the kettlebell that, although you've put your own spin on it, it is in essence what a lot of the old time strongmen used to do. Because, of course, they did the foundational movements. They did a clean and press and that sort of a thing. But they also moved in a variety of different ways that were going to help them get stronger. So bent presses, two hands anyhows. They were doing all sorts of stuff that put them in odd angles. They were being very creative with their training, albeit for their time and place. So what you're doing is not aping what they did, but rather it's in the same spirit, where you're not going to say no to a movement because it's, let's say, un-PC, or is not
Right.
approved, or is silly looking, or whatever the case may be. Because if it doles out gains, it's already proven that it's worthy. And before we got started, we were talking about a lot of uh, the faux pas that we see that otherwise very good trainers make, where they over focus on foundational movements and they don't really prepare their students for the path that they're about to go on. So let's start by talking about that in particular. And we keep hearing, oh, you always gotta be doing the basics. You're never gonna be too good for the fundamentals. And although that's true, would you say that it's a fair statement to say that only doing the fundamentals is kind of like, let's say, I don't know, digging the foundation of your house and then not building your house around it?
Oh, yeah, big time. So, you know what? What's one of the common phrases that gets thrown out there? We're going to go an inch wide, but a mile deep. And what happens if you go down that trench? you're stuck.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I see by a vast uh, majority of folks that really ascribe to that mentality. They go deep, deep, deep into this very narrow selection of exercises, and asking them to do anything up and outside of that canyon is a laughable situation to behold, because they've literally trained their ability to have movement optionality out of their system.
Yeah. Yeah. If
And
they're
so I'd much
outside of the
rather
angle,
be,
even a little bit outside of that angle, they're like either unable to do it or they're going to tweak something. And, yeah, they've made it so that they're like, I liken it to the scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Spoiler alert. The movie came out close to 40 years ago, guys. So if you haven't seen it by now, this is really on you. So this is
yeah,
whatever. But Indiana Jones drinks from the Holy Grail, and the knight tells him basically that he's achieved immortality. But the caveat is that the Grail cannot pass beyond the Great Seal on the floor of the entrance of this hidden monastery. For that is I think he says that's the honor, or that's the boundary and the price of immortality. So imagine that. You're like, oh, I get to live forever. I just can't, you know, actually be around people. I have to be in solitude. Like, what's the point? So, what's the point of getting super strong if it only works in the four walls of your gym or with like super, super precise technique? It's not really strength.
yeah, yeah. And let's go a different direction, or evolve what I was saying here, because this is one of my main things with kettlebell specifically, of the um, over reliance on the fundamentals,
Mm-hmm.
right? The big six. Let's just take one of them: double front rack squats. It's a great drill. It's a full body lift, but it's not the world's greatest lower body lift, because anyone that can actually squat that is never limited by what their legs are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a benefit in one viewpoint, and it's an absolute detractor in another viewpoint. And this type of thing with kettlebells, specifically due to their shape, the logistics around, the practicalities around what can I hold on my body in my grip, just the girthiness of these things make certain lifts impossible to go heavier and heavier,
Mm-hmm.
because uh, the geometry changes so much that you can't keep the same form, you can't execute it in the same way. And so if you want to keep progressing, you need to change how you load. And with kettlebells, that's going to be like asymmetrical stances and different holding positions. Maybe put the kettlebells on your shoulder when you squat instead of worrying about the front rack. And just having the malleability in your noggin up here to understand that all you're trying to do is achieve a certain stimulus. And if it isn't to the arbitrary standards of whatever organization that you got letters from, uh, that doesn't matter as long as it's safe and driving some sort of stimmy.
Yeah. I try to explain to people too, there's a difference between the standard, like what we would expect to see in a certification setting, and what you can train for safely on your own as well. Like I did some years ago, I was doing a lot of double kettlebell front squats. And when I would go heavy with them, or at least heavy for the bells that I had, like you pointed out, the geometry just changes to such a degree that other things have to change to accommodate it. And so I would have my elbows out really far in order to be able to better hold on to, because I had like a 40 kilo and a 32 kilo. And I just found if I had them here, I was not able to get in as many reps because like I would lose the connection with the bell. But if I had my elbows out, which is considered like a faux pas in a certification setting, I was able to get more reps in. And so, although it was, of course, a little bit more fatiguing on the shoulders, my shoulders could handle it. So I wanted my legs to be able to get in enough work that I wasn't dropping, two or three reps out of each set because I just couldn't hold it in the politically correct position. Let's say.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, I'm just like, that's a hyper focus on your form, not getting strong. And those are two different things. Like I just put this up. Literally, here's a beast. I didn't hold it like this. I'm not that strong, but like here's a beast on the floor. and here's a 16K. If you think that your clean is going to be executed exactly the same between these two, and you're going to catch it and hold it in the same spot, you are a moron. And unfortunately, that is how it's taught. You should be able to make it look exactly the same here and here. And it just, that's not how it works because it sits physically different and each human looks physically different. So yeah, the over reliance on and the redundancy of the basics setups is a recipe for long term plateaus or long term lack of any progressing.
Yeah.
In the short term, it's a phenomenal way to focus on a handful of large payoff exercises that for a novice person, it's going to be like magic. For someone that's been doing a bunch of crazy random bunch of stuff, focusing for a 1 to 3 month period, it's going to feel like magic. But you got to understand that anytime you go into a new program for 3 months and you hit it consistently with progressive overload, it's going to feel like magic.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to watch experienced people go have be all about one program because it worked really well. Go to the next program, be like, no, this is the program. And then a
Yeah.
third program to do the same thing. And they forget. They're like, no, that first one was bullshit. I'm like, no, the first one worked for you really well.
Yeah.
It's never been the singular program. It's that when you go and do different stuff consistently, you are able to bring up the new different qualities that you're
Yeah.
training. And that's the real like magic of a long-term thought process is when I go to the next thing, how can I maintain as much of what I while bringing up elements of other items? And so over 3 years, it's like my baseline strength is pretty much the same, but I can jump higher. I can do this better. I have this skill now. To me, that's a really cool long term progression idea versus like at a certain point, unless you have access to gargantuous weights of kettlebells, of which most people don't,
Yeah.
you aren't going to keep progressively overloading.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but if you also just think about, okay, in addition to the fact that you would need progressively heavier and heavier kettlebells, which for some people they're not interested in dropping $300 on a new kettlebell, or their wife or husband is not going to agree to it. And then you also think, okay, well, what are some of the movements that they're doing? It's like, oh, they're just doing, let's say, goblet squats, or front squats, and presses and swings, so on and so forth. Well, how about, okay, for the lower body, what about adding in some single leg deadlifts or some sort of single leg hinging variations, or maybe lunges, because lunges are very often maligned in the kettlebell world, inexplicably. Um, a lot of people just don't like them for some reason, and I think it's okay. It's like in the fitness world in general, people like lunges. I think they're doing them very poorly because they're like, very half-hearted. They're not. I like to go like full way down. But think about that. Like if you got, I don't know, a 16 kilogram or 35-pound kettlebell, and you could easily squat it for tons and tons of reps, but you struggle with like a couple of reps with the lunge. You don't think that bringing up your lunge from like 1 to 2 shaky reps to like 10 strong ones, of a deep lunge might also have an impact in improving your squat? It very
Yeah,
likely will.
yeah, it's a wild. I here's why I think the traditional kettlebell world is anti because lunges in historical context has some sort of association with feminine fitness
Yeah.
or shaping and toning. It's what women do. And we're so fucking hardcore around here. We're so elite that I won't lunge. That's for sissies. So instead, I'm just going to do sets of six of this 53-pound goblet squat and squeeze my asshole so tight that I develop a hernia because that's hard because of the tension. That's just lying to yourself instead of actually making it heavier.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I think that it's important to number one, branch out so that you're actually doing enough stuff where you're like the 53-pound goblet squat. Maybe that's now good as a warm up, and at one point it was like a working set. But you'll get there by doing a lot of different stuff, and you don't really eventually you get to the point where, again, it's like you're stacking like Jenga blocks, one on top of the other. You're not creating a structure such that it's stable enough where you can just kind of stack them willy nilly. You've got to be like super precise, and it starts to get wobbly. And this is the way that a lot of people's strength is built. It's built not on a strong foundation, but it's like, again, trying to stack more and more of these blocks one on top of the other. And the only way that, from my experience, that you can get around that and also train with light to moderate weights and then surprise yourself with heavy weights when the time comes, or very quickly be able to pick up where you left off when, I don't know, you hit the lottery, or you finally break down and you buy one of those heavy kettlebells. uh, you have to be preparing to do other stuff as well. You had a very good example of this. You sent me a video the other day of you doing 15 double kettlebell cleans with a pair of beasts. So it's 106 pound per kettlebell, two of them, 15 reps in a
Mhm.
row. And you made a uh, funny observation. You're like, I guess all this prancing around is not all that bad for strength, or something to this effect. And
Right.
so we'll talk about that for a little bit, because I do see videos of you lifting relatively heavy kettlebells, but a lot of them you're not really lifting all that heavy. You're also getting plenty out of explosive light kettlebells, or done at very different angles, or done moving from place to place and things like that. How does that play into laying the foundation for the heavy double kettlebell cleans if you're not training them specifically?
Yeah. So there's I'm even just going to talk about Will Rattel and what the heck, John Heck, I think is his name. I don't remember his last name, but he's a monster. He's like 6'8", almost 300 pounds
Wow.
of 10% body fat. Just an enormous human. But they just were talking about this with el- elite lifters and athletes. And I'm not that, but elite lifters and athletes, their 90% of what they can lift is so much more demanding on their entire system
Yeah.
that it's you cannot compare a 90% person of a 200-pound PR squat to someone that has a 600-pound PR squat. So
Yeah.
even though your abilities have raised, your total uh, adaptability of your nervous system, your skeletal system, your connective tissues, and all that stuff doesn't raise at the same level of your muscular capacity. And
Yeah.
so the amount that you can recover, and so where I'm going with this is, for instance, I've been bitching and moaning all fucking day today because I beat that 15 yesterday and I did 17 reps with the double 106s. And then I did 10 full double 36 snatches directly into 10 full 36 cleans and some other stuff that was challenging. And my goddamn hands are killing me today. I woke up in the middle of the night and you can't see it because I manicure so nicely that I
Yeah.
don't even have calluses, but you can see how they're like purple and red.
Yeah.
That's because the skin hurts so bad from being pulled around on those. Um, so I touch them once, twice a week for like a freaking set, two
Yeah.
sets maybe to test it. But all my training is what you said. I go with the lighter bells, which has lower total system fatigue,
Hmm.
but then I arrange my limbs in a way that gives me a higher per muscle unit challenge.
Yeah.
For instance, a kickstand swing with 70 pounds. I know from multi-directional force plate data, I've been geeking out by going to the exercise phys lab. I know that roughly 2/3 to 70% of the force on a kickstand swing is from my front leg.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to have a significant amount more overload in just kickstand swings, cleans, and snatches with the same size bell. Most of the stuff we're doing with one hand at a time, so I might as well go to a kickstand to achieve a bigger overload on that singular leg
Hmm.
without frying my grip, skin, shoulder, elbow. And so if we think about, what is the weak link or what is it that we want to bring up, then I arrange my body in the way to attack those without having to also challenge all the other stuff. Because at the end of the day, I want to feel athletic.
Hmm.
And for me, what muscles make you jump higher, run faster? Is it your lower back and traps and grip? Or is it your legs and hips? It's,
Hmm.
of course, the legs and hips.
Yeah.
And we, as people that love the gym, fuck it up regularly and think the heavier we go. But at a certain point, the principal muscles that are the limiting factor end up being what I call the construction man muscles, the back, the traps, and the grip. And so if you're interested in just being a power lifter, strong man, construction man beast, then God bless, do that. But if you would like to maybe not have those things be fried and tired and pissed off all the time, and make your athletic muscles, then you pick athletic positions and you load them up and you move explosively. That and the second part of your answering that, besides like positioning, is the short way of saying all the things I just said. And the second thing is, I think that training for power keeps your level of strength higher
Yeah.
than training for strength keeps your power up. So if you get to whatever your strength level is, if I focus on power, not powerlifting like heavy, but power explosive lifting, I think that maintains my baseline of strength really nicely. I don't know, 90% of what I could lift. Versus if I'm a powerful, explosive, fast athlete or want to be adult athlete, washed up athlete, and then I just focus on slow grind strength, I think you lose your ability to move explosively significantly faster than vice versa. And so, from a longevity, do cool shit, go dunk on my kids and make their friends jealous that their dads can't do the things that I am, which is obviously what you want to do is establish
Yeah.
neighborhood dominance,
Exactly.
is train explosively. And that maintains the strength. So the only time that doesn't work is if you want to be construction man, massive, giant weight guy, and then you do that.
Yeah, but I think you make a good point about the explosive part because that's one of the if you were to look at, let's say, you took a film of a couple of different people running, just racing each other, and you made it so it's a silhouette. It looks like, one of those James Bond opening sequences, with like the dancing ladies, but you can't see any features. But you can just tell like from the silhouette. So if you were to look at that and you were to just be like give an approximate age to each person running, and they were all different ages, you would probably be able to pick out who the older person was by virtue of the fact that they can't move as quickly, they can't start as quickly, they can't go as quickly, and also maybe all their posture or whatever the case may be. But you can train yourself into a situation where you move poorly like that at a much younger age, and it's not because you're sedentary, but rather because you are not doing even a modicum of power work. And I think that actually one of the things that I'm working on in my own training right now is making it a point to include enough explosive stuff that and beyond the kettlebell, even I think like clapping push-ups or explosive push-ups, for instance, or
Right.
like box jumps, jumping up but not back down. These are things that go a long way at helping you to maintain that, even if you're only doing a few reps, but just making sure you hold on to it. And what I think is really great about the kettlebell and your approach in particular is that you do this with the bell so that you are, number one, you're still getting your training with the bell and you can train it for a greater volume. You really can't jump a whole lot for most people and have it be safe. I mean, you could have somebody do 20 swings in a row for 5 sets in a row, and their technique can be perfect for every set and every rep. You can't really do that with jumping. So the explosive stuff I think is key, and then I think also being able to move at different angles is key. So what's really great about your approach is that you're getting these things in there, but you're doing it in a way where people are not likely to strain their Achilles or tweak a hamstring from sprinting when they're not ready for it. And they can build it back up to doing those things, but they need to do it in a way that is controlled. And the kettlebell, I think, is unparalleled for being able to do that. You can't really do it with a barbell in the manner that you're doing it, or a dumbbell. You can a little bit, I suppose, with a dumbbell, but not for the kind of rep, the higher rep schemes. Dumbbells don't really lend themselves to it. Kettlebell's perfect for it.
It really is. It just that's a big piece. Even since you came through the course, we've redefined the idea of be able, be athletic, be adaptable. I don't even know if that was in there when you went through the course or not, but
I think it was,
it
yeah.
may have just gone in. That's yeah, I think I just put it in there, but the no, I had it out of the gate. You're but anyway, I talked about a whole hell of a lot more over the years, and the idea there being from an athletic standpoint, right? Like most of the industry will immediately be like, if you want to train like an athlete, go play a sport. And I go, well, that is just a stupid recommendation for most of the people paying you for training.
Hmm.
Like, I think it's an awesome, optimistic end goal statement from a, hey, yeah, go play pickleball, volleyball, tennis, basketball, softball, soccer, like all these adult leagues. I think it's rad. I don't play myself basketball anymore. I would love to, but I have a big torn meniscus. And if I go play basketball, I will absolutely piss it off because the
Yeah.
last 3 times I played 5-on-5, I pissed it off. And if I was in the NBA, they would go and give me a meniscectomy so that I wouldn't aggravate it. But I don't play in the NBA and I don't have that money and time to recover. So
Yeah.
instead, I make the pragmatic decision that I can't do that. Some sand volleyball and tennis, I would love to go do. However, I've got small children and a wife that demand time. And since I can't figure out how to play that in the middle of the day, then I just end up not playing it. And I'm using myself as an example of a normal human being. Because a lot of the people that say just go play sport are 25-year-old single bros that
Yeah.
have no context of real adulting yet. Because when I
Yeah.
was a 25-year-old single bro, I was playing basketball 5 or 6 days a week, plus lifting, because my life afforded me the flexibility to do such.
Yeah.
And the realities of life are that's probably not the case for at least a period of time, whether it's establishing yourself in a new industry as a professional, whether it's new families before the kids are in school, before they have ways to go and do shit that you can get away. Most of us have those responsibilities for large swaths of our life, and we can't just go play sport. And so, what I think is a long-winded way of coming right back to what you said. The kettlebell allows you to train athletically, explosively, and multi-directionally based on its shape and like potential function better than anything else. Yet, not no one else, in my estimation, is really trying to take advantage of that. And I've been somewhat coy and not like braggadocio about the fact that what we do is very unique compared to what other people do. But I've been told recently, like, hey, maybe stop being like so humble about what you're doing and maybe be like a little bit more cocky about it. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair because kettlebell sport, your feet are glued. I don't find that particularly athletic. I
Yeah.
do think there's a more athleticism involved in kettlebell sport than hardstyle on a just because the rhythm, the timing, the patience, the smoothness and execution that has to go into there. I think it's a little trickier than just bear down and make it as explosive as you can. So
You're forgetting one element.
there's
That's
that.
competition. It's an actual
Yes, it's
sport. Yeah.
100%. Like, and so it's, I won't compete in it because it's too fucking difficult for me. I'm a
Yeah.
pussy. So, but for with hard style and with how most people do it, um, they're trying to make everything simpler. They're dumbing it down for everything, and they're making it all bilateral. I use this analogy. I think they train it like it's a barbell, right? Like, don't rotate, don't have hip shift, don't do single leg, and they're evolving. They are finally evolving because the entire landscape has changed so much that they're having to adapt a little bit. And you're seeing more and more hard style purists start sharing
Hmm.
different shit. And it's actually delightful to watch because you can just see they have zero control in single leg stances because they haven't done it for so long
Well, I'll point this
in
out
a
because
lot
you
of
and I.
instances.
No, sure. Now, I remember we've talked about this before too. I remember wasn't I did my SFG2 in 2014, and they didn't yet have the. I think I saw somebody demonstrate it, but they didn't teach it to us. But somebody mentioned at some point that like
Athletic skills.
yeah, the athletic skills that was already in there like 10 years ago that they were teaching it at the level two. But I never understood why they wouldn't lead with that because it was something that they included. And in fact, when I assisted 2 years ago at the Dome in Chicago, I was assisting for the level two, and they had that in there, and they were teaching the participants how to do like lunge into snatch and side walking or side stepping swings and stuff like that. And similarly, they did it in RKC because I remember I used to watch the show reels. That for me, that was like I guess prior to memes becoming a huge thing, I would watch as much kettlebell content as I could. But that was one of the
Yeah.
things that they did, and it's like it got kind of trimmed out, and it never needed to get trimmed out because it was already, something that people did and they enjoyed, and it just sort of like I think arbitrarily got cast into the outer darkness as opposed to contextualized as, hey, you can do this later, but let's first make sure you know how to do your regular swing so you have the control and the strength, and then we'll do some sidestepping stuff and some other cool things.
Well, I wonder because I don't know, but I wonder how much of that comes down to does that does the inclusion of that actually interfere with the clean messaging that that we just do these fundamentals, like just
Yeah.
focus on these because that's what elite athletes do, and so it gives a little bit of a mixed message, and so
Yeah.
it's confusing, right? And there's a good number of people in the upper echelons and over the years that have taught for those organizations that I know explore quite a bit more than what they teach, but they don't put it out there loudly. And so what ends up happening is the people that go and they buy in to everything that they're told, and they just regurgitate stuff like a parrot, then they don't understand that those athletic skills are a part of it and can
Yeah.
be a progression because they're poo-pooed loudly quite often.
Yeah. And I find actually, this has just been my experience, that a lot of the people who are doing the poo pooing are not the upper echelons, but it's rather the people who want to get heard by the upper echelon.
Yes, that's what I mean. So, and that's a better way of explaining it. It's like
Yeah.
they are looking for, hey, come and give me a high five for like what a good soldier I'm being.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a pat on the head. Like I don't. Do you ever see Beer Fest? Like,
Yes.
yeah. Remember there was some scene where I don't know. I think some courier brings a message or whatever. One of those big German dudes like pets him on the head like he's a pet, for bringing this like special message. It's been a long time since I've seen it, so I may be misremembering slightly, but yeah, I mean it's the same thing like reading through the forums. Or I remember one time I got uh, I posted a video of I call it the hike position power swing. So it's difficult to set up, but I had a couch that I could remove one of the cushions and then put a pillow down. So I got to just the right height where it would be roughly where the bell would end up if I were swinging it backward, behind me. So I would start in that position rather than with the kettlebell on the floor in front of me, where I would have to hike it back. It was already hiked back. And then I would
Yep.
stand up and, it would be like really explosive. Well, Mark Rifkin himself was like, "This is brilliant. This takes all of the stretch reflex out of it. It's got to be pure power, etc." So he gave it um, very high marks. And of course, he's the progenitor of the power swing. Well, I
Yep.
posted it on Instagram, and some guy was like, "This is trash," and then he's like, "You need to be doing blah blah blah." And it was like, again, it was an honest to goodness kettlebell enthusiast, so he thought he was being helpful, but I don't know why he thought being rude to me was being helpful. But I told him, I was like, dude, Mark Rifkin himself said he liked this variation, so just take it from me. Like it's got, you know, like I understand the rationale behind the power swing enough to be doing this. This is not just for the hell of it. So you see a lot of that, and then I think people look from the outside looking in, or other people who are not as loud, let's say, look at it and they think, "Oh, well, then this is the way that it's supposed to be done," and it's like, you
Right.
know, that's not really the case. And I think that a lot of the higher ups have a more nuanced look. Like again, it's the same thing with like Pavel. People are like, "Oh, all you need to do is 2 to 3 exercises," and it's like I would recommend you read his book Beyond Bodybuilding, because he gives tons of great insight into how to do curls or tricep extensions in a way that is in line with the principles that he teaches, and is not, just like I don't know, the kind of stuff that you see the influencers doing, but it's still like outside of just swings and get ups. So he understands, and he's always understood how to do that stuff. He's never said you can't do them or that they're bad. He'll poke fun at them, but the mistake that a lot of people make is then assuming that, well, this is the absolute truth brought down from the mountain, and we can't deviate from this, where they were never told they couldn't deviate. They just decided that, well, it's time to cast all these other movements out into the wilderness, and we can only ever
Here's a
do these.
here's a question. The reason I stood up, Your book is right next to Pavel's books over there, by the way.
Nice.
Um,
Where it
I thought
belongs.
I'd be on. Yes. Uh, there's Power of the People, Return of the Kettlebell, Power of the People 2, or Power of the People Professional, Simple and Sinister. I thought my Beyond Bodybuilding was right there. It must be in the other room.
Yeah.
Um, but I was going to bring those over here and be like, look, all these were written before Simple and Sinister, and Simple and
Yeah.
Sinister is what a lot of people only know now. And I wonder, and I haven't had this discussion with anybody, so I don't know where the head is, but I don't even know if it would happen purposely. Sometimes, oftentimes, the more focused and simple the message, the easier it is to resonate with a lot of people. I
Totally.
understand that. And over time, did we just learn that the simple and sinister and those simple messages are also easier to explain because you have less nuance needed, right? You don't have to entertain questions because you're like, no, fuck you. It's this one way. I just told you, don't ask any questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Take a lap holding your kettlebell. You're 24. Don't put it down.
Yeah.
And it's part of the shtick. So I think there's a lot of like shtick of how material was delivered in a faux military way
Hmm.
with we are elite, we do these limited things that resonated well. And it's this self fulfilling prophecy where it kept dwindling down and getting more and more focused.
Yeah.
And some of the nuance around it got lost over time. And unfortunately, as that happened, that becomes branding. And when you want to be true and consistent with your branding, I understand why you need to do that. It makes your messaging more clear.
Hmm.
So I get it from a logistics standpoint. It doesn't mean that I think it's actually the best way to, I think it can work. Obviously it works. That's
Yeah.
like when people say it doesn't work and it's stupid, I'm like, no,
It
that's
does
not
work.
it.
Yeah.
It does work. It's just not the end all be all only thing that works. So we
Yeah.
can't dismiss it. Like I try to be really clear about that. People try to get me to talk shit and I'm like, I won't quite talk shit except for about the khakis and the like uh you know playing military when you're not military cosplay as an adult. Calm down. Other than that, it's really good. It's worked for so many thousands of people. To say it doesn't work is a misrepresentation yourself. Where I do get problematic is when they say other stuff doesn't work. And they is who you're talking about. The people that just came for one certification
Yeah.
and they don't understand the nuance because they're newer. They're trying to suck up to their
Yeah.
organization. It's not only, I'm not talking about Strong First. This is literally any organization because I'll have it with us. People will take our cert and then think talking shit about other organizations is going to earn them like a fucking virtual high five for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, what they're doing is awesome.
Yeah.
Do that and other stuff.
Yeah. You know what? My one of the greatest t-shirts I ever saw was there's a guy named Paul Carter who's like a hypertrophy expert,
Yeah, that guy.
and there was a great t-shirt that he used to sell on his website. Maybe he still does. I haven't been to the website, or at least the older one. But on the back of it, it just said, "Death is winning. Do something." And it's like that's really what it comes down to, man. And it's like, and for most people nowadays, it's not just. I mean, of course, death is always going to win, but it is like obesity, hypertension, um, like physical decay. These are all winning. Okay, so do
Yeah.
something. So I don't like to, even though there are some things that I think are weenie-ish, like Pilates and whatever. If that's what's going to get somebody off the couch and excited to move, I'm like, there's no rule that says they have to do it for the rest of their lives. They might get interested in something different and decide to do something different later.
Mm-hmm.
And so I make it a point never to discourage people. Now there are of course certain let's say uh, elements within the our niche of the fitness world who I find especially annoying, and I'll tell you off air so that I don't break my rule just as I said it now. But a lot of people don't get that message, and especially I think if they are enthusiasts as opposed to professionals, that's the first thing they jump into because now it's like, well, I get to be a part of a cool club that all these other people around me are not a part of, and they're the first thing that they want to do is like, of course, if you're going to be a part of a cool club or a tribe, is got to be us versus them. These people are
Yep.
fools; they don't know what they're doing, and so on and so forth. And the reality is, like you said, it all works. The key is that it all. I think Dan John said this very well. He said everything works And then the caveat to this is everything works for at least 6 weeks.
For a time.
Yes.
Everything works for a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it couldn't be truer. And this is, and that doesn't mean you have to switch out all your exercises necessarily, but you do have to consider, especially if your goal is health, that you're better off being more broadly well developed than overdeveloped in just one thing that you don't even compete. It's like if you wanted to compete and you're willing to take the risk to your health for, over developing a certain thing, okay, fine. Most people are not interested in that. So why train them like that?
Yeah. There's another example of that. Me and you had a IG back and forth in the DMs about it. You were sliding in my DM. Maybe I slid in your DM. Anyway, we got slippery.
A lot of slipping and sliding going on there.
Yeah. Um, it was about I think it's distinctly Kettlebell that has this trend of 3 times a week for 30 minutes,
Oh yeah, yeah.
where I think it's the same type of narrowing how you message what you do on accident, mostly, is that, oh, this is working with a particular audience that seems to be an outsized representation of who's buying my shit.
Hmm.
And so I'm going to lean into that message a little bit more. And then it resonates more. And now it's this self fulfilling prophecy of, oh, look how well it's working. This is better.
This
And
is
I
the
call
thing
that
that works.
yeah. And I call that founderitis, where like it's really just selection bias of
Yeah.
who is self selecting and doing well and telling you that it goes well. Um, because if you've got a bunch of people that haven't been working out a bunch, and then all of a sudden they add 3 workouts times 30 minutes in a week, and they choose clean, double bell, clean, jerk, front squats, and some swings, those are high return on investment exercises. And if you just did that or some combination of those with enough effort 3 times 30 minutes a week, and you hadn't been doing shit, or you'd been doing like haphazard, half-ass shit for more days, you will absolutely improve in a short term because, like Dan John said, everything works for 6 weeks to 3 months, something like this. But eventually, that isn't enough. Or specific to kettlebells, eventually you run out of pragmatic ways to improve it unless you move your cleans to Bulgarian cleans or
Mhm.
kickstand cleans or. Um, but yeah, it's just a accidental marketing stuff, I think, a lot of times in how we promote things that we do.
Yeah, I think that the other thing is that it depends. Number one, there are only so many things you can say. You can't give every possible like caveat and whatever in a let's say a Facebook post. But provided that when people start doing it, you let them know, hey, at some point you're going to get even better results by either adding an extra day in. Here's how you do it. I'll reference Paul Carter again. I remember some years ago he said, people ask, should I add another day? Should I add another day into my training? And I think his role was like, if you can do, and I'm this is just off the top of my head. This is probably 10 years ago. He wrote something about this, but like, if you can do 3 days a week and you don't miss a day, and you do that for a whole month, and you want to add a fourth day, then do that. Make sure you don't miss that fourth day for a whole month before you think about adding a fifth day. And so the idea is from there, at least there's a progression when you're like, number one, there's value to doing more things. And the training doesn't have to be even more weight training. It could be just, going out on a jog or I don't know, rock
I would
climbing.
recommend a 9 minute workout. Do you know
Oh,
one?
oh, you know what? Come to think of it, I do. Folks, this episode has been brought to you by me and my 9 minute kettlebell and bodyweight challenge. I've always wanted to do that, by the way, like, right in the middle, just throw in like a cheeky advertisement, but it's just for me and there's no actual sponsor. So that was a good like to think I got a decent layup from
Yeah, that
from
was a
your
good
question.
assist.
Yeah, nice. Not bad. I don't know the basketball terminology because I'm not very tall. I was never good at sports, basketball, the least of which. But but yes, exactly. And I think that people. I think instinctively they understand that the more that they train, the better. People also like hearing, "Oh, I only have to do two exercises, or I only have to train 3 days a week." And it's true, and as long as you understand that, let's say that investment is probably going to get you a little bit of, maybe even a lot further toward your ultimate goals, but at some point or another, it may prove not to be enough. And that if you want to keep it at the 30 minutes, the level of, let's say, momentary exertion that you're going to have to do in order to really outpace what you've done in the past might be a little bit difficult to recover from. So
Yeah.
you need to consider adding another day or adding on more time under the workout. And for some people, those for whom it is not an option, keep doing it. Don't turn that into a system when it doesn't need to be a system. It should be a strategy, and strategies switch when the time calls for it, just like tactics, you know. And
When the circumstances change, you may need a different strategy.
exactly,
And that 3 by 30, simple and sinister, any program might be the correct strategy for a certain person under certain circumstances. And what we have a habit of trying to do is say this is the strategy that's best for everybody
yeah,
instead of acknowledging. And I get it from a marketing standpoint. It's way simpler. I know
yeah,
that, you know that from my course. Like I know there's people that come and get confused and they leave and they're not 100% sure of what the fuck they should do from the 48 variations of things that we showed.
yeah.
That's why we made all the digital stuff available when you leave the course, so you can go back and there's lecture about programming and progressions in there. But it's much simpler to just be like, just always do this one variation.
Yeah. Yeah, if you tell people for the time being, just do this, and then in 6 weeks, let's reassess. But trust me, just take my word for it. Do it for now, okay, and then we'll work
Yep.
on X, Y, and Z. And but that this is why part of me also thinks, by the way, that a lot of the like really strict and overly, uh, let's say, rigid approaches to training come from like a, let's say, an unhealthy obsession with science, and
Mm-hmm.
to the point of scientism, which is where it becomes like a belief system as opposed to a means of trying to determine just the facts of a given situation. And I remember I had some years ago I had Berge Fagerli on my show. He's a Norwegian hypertrophy expert, very smart, and he told me that in his view, strength training and hypertrophy training is more of an art than it is a science, because there are a lot of things that go into, let's say, muscle building. Like, yeah, 8 reps can build muscle, but so can 20. And he said, there are people
Right.
who they just prefer 20 reps, and so like they could build muscle on really hard 8 rep sets, but they just don't enjoy it as much, so that's going to eat into their willingness to be uh, consistent with their training. So why not have them do 20, even though it's going to be more, metabolically fatiguing, and it's going to, they're going to keep coming back and doing it. There's going to be some more enjoyment in it, so on and so forth. And forgetting that there's, a bit of an art to it, or maybe a lot of an art to it, is, I think, to the detriment of the people that we're trying to help. Because ultimately, if you're a coach, you need to be able to tweak their technique based on their limb length, based on tweak the programming based on the amount of time they have available, but also the stuff that they enjoy. That's a big part of the art of it.
Big
Like
big
they
time.
they need to have fun.
Well, and I mean, looking at those hypertrophy studies or strength studies, when they have the relatively small groups that they end up being, but like let's say there's 20 people in a study, and they go, the average was here, 12 reps out of between 5 and 20. But
Hmm.
we had 3 people that at 20 reps had the best hypertrophy, and 3 people at 5 reps that had the best hypertrophy. And then everybody in the middle was kind of like in the middle. And you go, this is where these goddamn arguments come from, because you got camps that espouse the 5 or 6 reps max effort at 2 sets because they happen to have a couple of high responders, maybe themselves, to
Yeah,
that strategy. And then you got the high rep people, and it's because the individuality of people. And here's the even worse part of what I'm just trying to give the art piece some credibility here is I think that can change for you in your lifetime.
of
Like
course.
it doesn't mean I'm always going to be better at 6 reps because I may train 6 reps for 6 months And then all of a sudden, if I swap to a 20 rep, I bet you that elicits some new gains because the best
Yeah,
shit you can do is the shit you haven't been doing.
exactly. This is why I always, since we're talking about muscle building, I get such a kick out of like this like new or old new obsession with Mike Menser. Like one set to
Mm-hmm.
failure. It's like it works for some people for sure. Like Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia, said that was like switching to that. I mean, he'd already been doing like two sets to near failure at least, and it worked really well for him. But yeah, it's like it does work for some people. But imagine trying to put like, I don't know, 43-year-old mom of three kids who's just trying to lose some fat and look better in a bathing suit. And you're like, okay, you're going to now leg press 200 pounds until you're borderline crippled. And here's your wheelchair. We're going to wheel you back to your van. It's like maybe it works for some people. Maybe it's not the best choice for her. You can be
Yeah,
an artist and you can say maybe there's going to be something that's going to suit you a little bit better.
indeed.
Well, you've got another event coming up pretty soon, and it's a fun one, I am told. It is Belfast, and this time it's going to be, ironically, not yet in Belfast. I think I told Madeline, the organizer, I was like, you really need to consider doing this in Ireland at some point, so you can have Belfast in Belfast. She's like, yeah, I thought about doing that. I don't know when it's going to happen, but knowing her, it will eventually take place because she's very savvy about these things.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about the event because it is one of those rare events that's still taking place in a time when people like to seem to like to just watch YouTube videos. More power to them. But people like that in person experience, and they're going to get that in person feel with you, Dave Whitley, who's also a friend of the show, and a lot of other great instructors. So give us some insight into what people can expect.
Right. So the first one was in September 2023. That's why Maddie was at the Nashville
Oh, nice.
FK Teen event that you were at. So I signed up as a participant because it somehow came across my feed. I didn't know Maddie at the time. I don't even know if I followed Maddie at the time, but people that were teaching shared it. And I was like, oh, I should go to that because there's a bunch of people that are like kettlebells, and I sell a kettlebell cert. So
Yeah.
it would be good for me to meet these people. And so I went as a participant. And it just so happened that a decent chunk of the presenters had taken a course of some type with me. And it was funny because I'm taking their class and they're like, and that's the guy I took my first cert from 10 years ago. And so there's a handful of people that are like, what the fuck's this bald guy over here that apparently has trained a number of these presenters, um, which was cool. And that's how I got to know Maddie, and I met a couple of other people that have become instrumental in the organization. So Bell Fest, Bell for Kettlebell, Fest is a party. It is, that's my definition. It's
Festival,
literally
yeah.
a kettlebell party. And just like walk in and you go, Alex, you like training with kettlebells? And you go, yeah. And I go, I like training with kettlebells. And then we high five, and it's like that's the bro
Yeah, we do like the
experience.
Step Brothers. Did we just become best friends? Yep.
Yes, everybody there is exactly reenacting that scene. And so it's just a bunch of people being very supportive, trying stuff that they probably haven't tried before. You have a couple of people that are a little standoffish, like, I don't know if I should try this because I'm worried I'm going to fall over. But it's like, it's it's very supportive, very community, very fun based. So it has evolved from the first one. The first one was primarily, and even the second was primarily like we're going to just kick the shit out of everybody, and every event is going to be a workout that's harder than, and everyone's just, ugh. And Maddie has switched that to have more education stuff. Now,
Yeah.
it's always been education because if you learned new cues, that's on you to pick it up or new exercises and they might be cool. So it's always had the potential for good education.
Hmm.
But now there's more specific, like, here's how to do XYZ. Here's a beginner's piece. Here's going deep, like Whitley talking about bent press and TGU
Yeah.
for a lot of the people there, this is a one of the expendables, right? If you remember my joke
Yeah.
about that, it's like he's been in the game of not just kettlebell training, but strongman training for so
Yeah.
long that you've got, in effect, like a historian of it that's
Hmm.
sharing their stuff. And that's really a unique, cool situation. And so the breadth of who's presenting, yeah, Dennis Vasilev, who's presenting on Kettlebell Sport, he's like
Oh
the
man.
best. It's like, hey, you literally have the best guy at it over
Yeah.
here. And it was a funny one in Denver 25, 24, maybe whatever. It was I was teaching, and I like to teach thumb forward on stuff when people are starting. I think it's easier to manage, not rotating. He loves thumb forward. So it was just very funny because after he goes, thumb forward, I like it. And, and I was like, I don't know what you said. That accent is thick.
Yeah.
Um, but you just have such a broad swath of styles that if you leave there thinking there's only one way, then you are so dug in that I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you. It's cool.
That's very cool and amazing that Dennis Vasilev is going to be there too. 'Cause I'm glad that they shifted away from the we got to crush them, in their workouts thing. Because a GS workout to like a noob, where it's like, all right, we're gonna snatch for 10 minutes and you can only switch hands once.
Yeah,
That would do some
it
damage.
it wouldn't work. No, I mean, and like so in the very first one, they had a girl Tiff Fitness that taught kettlebell sport. She broke down the swing style. So like there has always been the education,
Sure,
but
yeah,
it's just kind of the energy is so high
yeah,
that each thing kind of was like, oh Jesus, and again, and
yeah,
again, and again. Like my old ass, I'll do one workout per day and then kind of break off to where the big bells and human get ups and things like this are and do a couple of things there. But
yeah.
I gotta manage my own health.
No, exactly. After a while, I mean, like going back to what you said too about what Will Rittel and the other gentleman we're talking about, you're 90% as you start getting really, really strong, you start to get toward the edges of your like actual limits, not your perceived limits, but like actual limits. And so now you have limitations on your recovery and whatever the case may be. But I hope to be able to go to a Belfast event at some point or another.
Yeah,
Uh,
man, you'd really dig it.
I would, yeah, I think I would have a lot of fun. Maybe even as a presenter, that could be a fun time. But I just always have my head buried in the sand whenever these things are going on, and I find out like as it turns out, like a week or so before the event actually took place. And there you have it. So maybe next time around, I'm sure there will be another one. But this one is coming up. Give us the date so that people who are tuning in, if they're in the area or if they're feeling frisky, they can go and participate.
Saturday the 18th and Sunday the 19th is the main stuff. There's a Friday night thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Austin, that East Austin Athletic Club. It's a cool ass facility. It's pretty near the airport. So, it's pretty easy to get into. And yeah, it's one of those, and it's inexpensive, honestly. I know Maddie, she's told all the time she could charge more for it because it's 2 full days and
Yeah.
you know, use FKT as the code FKT 30. You save 30% on it, or $30, one of the two. But it's like a $250 event. So $250 for 2 days, and now she built it in to have CEU application. So if you're a trainer in the local area or in Houston, San Antonio, and even Dallas with a 4 hour drive, and you don't go for that cheap amount, I don't even know what to tell you at this
Yeah,
point.
you're a dum dum. That's for sure.
It's just a poor decision making
Yeah.
example.
At a very, very, I think it's very obvious that it's bad decision making not to go at that point.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, Cliff, it has been a pleasure having you on.
Yeah, man. It's
And
always fun to come on here, chop
yeah,
it
it
up.
is. And especially to, like you said, chop it up, talk about all sorts of fun stuff. Where can people find you online? It would be remiss if we do not
So
include that.
Instagram, it's Clifton Harski, CliftonHarski, and then at Functional Kettlebell Training, Instagram, and then the website's functionalkettlebelltraining.com.
Folks, go to all of those places immediately, unless you're driving, in which case, by all means, wait till the red light. But Cliff, thank you again for being on. It has been a pleasure. And folks, as always, have fun and happy training.